Hello and welcome back to part 4 of Who Are You, the 5-part video series where you are creating the blueprint for your dream life by stepping into the most authentic version of you. In part 4, we're going to talk about another common mistake that people make when setting and achieving goals, and that is a failure to measure their success. Now that you have a clear vision of the big picture plan, we can start to look at how we'll track our progress and how to stay on course. If you don't know me already, my name is Ria Davis. I am a holistic goal setting and happiness coach. Hopefully by this point you have gone through the other trainings so you already kind of know a little bit about me. But if you'd like to learn more about me and download the free workbook that goes with this training, go ahead and visit my website. I'll link it below so you can go right to the PDF and download that. And I'll also link my socials so that way you can follow for updates, exciting news, and more trainings just like this one. So in the last 3 videos, you got super clear on what you want and took an honest look at the starting point. In part 3, you started to clear the land to make way for your dreams, and now we need a way to measure your progress. I want you to think about the example of building a house. I know I keep coming back to that, but it's a really good example. If your goal is to build a house, how are you going to measure your progress and ultimately your success in reaching that goal? Would you measure it by how happy the builders were? Is that how you would measure your success? Would you measure your success by how tall the building is? Would you measure your success by how much has been completed? Each of these are valid ways of measuring success. It really just depends on what your goal is. If your goal is to complete a construction property with employee happiness being the #1 priority, then you might measure success by the reported happiness of the employees. But that's irrelevant if your goal was just to build a house. So that's why it was so important in the previous trainings or like the previous parts to get super clear on who you are, what you want, where you're going, where you're at, and get really clear on what the goals are, because you can't measure success if you don't know very specifically what your goal is. And that's really one area that traditional goal setting fails. When you're not super clear on the deeper meanings behind your goals, it becomes impossible to measure them and therefore impossible to succeed. I have a really good example of this in my own life back when I was in high school in the early 2000s. And any of my millennial friends will remember we had low-rise pants and prominent hip bones. That was the trend. We had celebrities who were super, super thin, and I just really wanted to look like all of them. I wanted to look like the people on MTV, and I got really frustrated when I couldn't do it. And I felt like it was my fault, and I put a lot of blame and shame and guilt on myself because I wasn't able to look like these celebrities with, my hip bones poking out. And that's because I was measuring my success by comparing myself to the celebrities at the time. I was basing my success off of someone else, and I wasn't super clear on my end goal. The goal also didn't align with me. Like I said, it was based on someone else, a mistake that we talked about in part 1. So if you haven't already, I really encourage you to go back through and make sure that you've gotten really clear with parts 1, 2, and 3, because until you do that, it's going to be really hard to measure your success. So make sure that you're really clear on where you're at, where you're going, and what you need to clear, keep, get more of, all of that. Make sure you're really clear on that so that way you can be successful and set these standards. I also want to remind you that this is your dream life. Have you ever set goals, but you felt like the outcome was out of your control? That's how I felt when I was trying to measure my success by the celebrities of the early 2000s. When you don't measure your success or you measure it in the wrong way, you don't feel like you're in control of the outcome. You can easily fall into a victim mentality and you lose perspective on all the gains that you've made. Think about a road trip. Even if you know the starting point and the destination, without tracking your progress, you don't know how long you've been driving or how far you have to go. This also means that if you veer off course, you really would have no way of knowing until you were just driving a really long time, I guess, and realized it. But having a starting point and a destination is absolutely crucial. But you kind of have to know where you're going along the journey. You have to have something to keep you on course, like the when you're bowling and they pull the little things up for people like me that can't keep it out of the gutter. Those are to keep you on course. Same thing. This is what we're doing in this video. We're setting up those boundaries, those bumpers, to keep you on track. So to reach your goals, you have to track your progress if you ever want to reach the destination. And when you're tracking your success and you're basing your success and you're basing your goals on someone else, that's when you're going to run into issues and it's just going to feel yucky. And a lot of times it's really hard to identify why. And these are the reasons. Comparison specifically is just the thief of joy. C.S. Lewis said that, but it's applicable. It's timeless. Comparison is absolutely the thief of joy. Whenever you're comparing yourself to someone else, you're only seeing a snippet of their life, even if they're your best friend or even if they're your significant other. You're never going to know every thought that goes through someone's brain, and that's okay because you're definitely not meant to. That's why it's so important to focus on what you can control, which is you and your thoughts and your actions. As humans, we're biased because we have bias. We are biased because we live in our own heads. As much as we try to be open-minded and see everyone's perspective, the default perspective is our own. And we tend to forget that we're the only people that are actually inside our heads. We don't know the internal things that people are going through, their motivations behind their actions, or anything really beneath the surface level that they showcase to the world. This is a good example on the slide. It's just, I know if you're listening to it in the audio format, you can't see, but it's just a picture and there's some coffee and a book. And I think about these posts on Instagram where you see this beautiful highlight reel. And I think about my own life even. I take pictures and I see them and they turn out beautiful, but what everyone else is not seeing are my kids running around destroying the kitchen, or, my dog chewing something up in the yard, or, the loud ambulance that's going by, or whatever. No, you're only seeing that frame. You're not even seeing like the panoramic view. You're just seeing that little piece. So when you're seeing these highlight reels, you don't know what went into that. To some people, that might look like you just snapped a quick picture, but they're not realizing that you had to pick out an outfit. You had to, do your makeup. You had to set the camera up. You had to do editing. I mean, there's a lot of things that go into these highlight reels that people aren't seeing. And when you take them for face value and you're taking it for face value, but then you're applying it like it's, this deep philosophical blueprint for your life, and it's not. Take it for what it is and use it for what it is. Just maybe inspiration, whatever. Use it for what it is. On the flip side, though, this is the part that I really like. The people that doubt you, or people who have put you down in the past, or people who said that it wasn't possible, or, those people, I'm sure they come to mind. They also can't see all of you. So they don't know the secret weapons that you have in your arsenal, and they don't need to. You know what you're capable of, and you don't need anyone else to recognize it or approve it. We're all equal, and no one knows better for your life than you, because they can only see what you're showing them. So they don't see, all those books that you read in high school that are now going to help you in whatever you're pursuing. I don't know. That was just a random example, but they can't see that. All they're seeing is what you're showing them. And sometimes it's a good thing. I'm going to say this again because I think it's just so important. Clarity is key. If you're not clear on where you're starting, where you need to go, and the challenges that you may face, you're not going to be able to measure your progress. If you're clear on the destination, you know exactly what milestones you need to reach on the journey, and you know exactly where you're starting, you're much more equipped to reach the destination. Let's say I'm taking a road trip. Let's say it's just an hour. And I know in that hour from start to finish, I know where I'm starting. I know where I'm going. I know there might be traffic. That might be my obstacle in the way that I need to overcome or whatever. But if I know that I'm going to pass this specific billboard, I'm going to pass this cow farm, and I'm going to pass this really pretty historic house. If I'm driving and 45 minutes has gone by and I haven't passed any of those things, and I know that my destination is only an hour away, I know something's wrong. So those are, I guess, symbolic of your steps. What is it going to take? What are the milestones? What are the landmarks that are going to say, okay, yep, you're going in the right direction. There's that billboard, there's that house, there's that farm, whatever. In these milestones and these small wins, that's where you'll learn what you need to get those big lessons and get you to your dreams. So, if nothing else, being clear, that's what's going to help you get there. It's what's going to help you measure your success and all of that. So, make sure that you're really, really clear. And a question that I like to ask myself when I am trying to get clear, trying to have even more clarity, I try to ask myself what does it look like, and actually picture and like walk myself through what it looks like, it feels like, it sounds like, all of these things. By now you probably know that I'm big on eliminating limiting beliefs, and that's no different here. Behind the inaction of not measuring your success, or behind the action of measuring it the wrong way, are some limiting beliefs that you might need to work through. One that I see, and that's common when people just aren't measuring success or haven't set up those measures, is I'll know when I get there. Obviously I'll know when I'm happier. Well, what does it mean to be happier? How do you measure happiness? What does it look like? What does it feel like? What do the people around you see? These are more specific questions. Happiness is really vague and really subjective. What we're trying to do here is move from subjective to objective. We're trying to take something that's intangible like happiness and put a concrete, objective, yes or no, black or white data point with it. So maybe you believe that you can't measure success or that you can't measure happiness, and that's a limiting belief right there. And like I said, you definitely can. You could self-report and keep a log. You could get to those deeper needs that you already identified and ask yourself, what objective data could I collect to track my progress? It might sound a little difficult and technical, and it totally can be if you want it to be. There can be numbers, percentages, spreadsheets, all of that. But you certainly do not need that. All you need to do, it could be as simple as just putting a sticker on a chart. If you're wanting to measure your happiness and you have like stickers, and let's say the star is a really good day, the question mark is an okay day, whatever, you assign meaning to the stickers and you track your mood like that. That's simple enough, right? Every day, just stick a sticker on a chart. How am I feeling today? Okay, cool. Bing, bam, boom. It can be as simple or as complex as you want to make it. But however you set it up, however you measure your success, it's really important to remember that no one has ever done what you want to do. No one has ever reached your goals. And that's because there is never, has never, and will never be another you. So you get to decide what your success looks like. To some people, happiness might be just a cabin in the woods by themselves in solitude and quiet. To other people, happiness might mean, fun social life and, going to the beach and all, I don't know, whatever your dreams are. It's all specific and unique to you. So you get to decide how you're going to measure it. But keep in mind what I said earlier. Are you measuring it based on you? Are you measuring it based on something kind of vague? Make sure it's really concrete and objective. And specifically for comparison, if you're struggling with comparison, saying things like, I must be like this person, or, pulling up a picture and saying, this is my goal, this is what I want to look like, look at the deeper things that you want. I didn't really want to look like those celebrities in the early 2000s. I wanted to feel more comfortable in my body and feel socially accepted. And now that I've reframed that, it sounds a lot more achievable, right? I can find other ways of achieving that success without basing it on something external and feeling like a failure when I couldn't reach something that was impossible. So when you're thinking about how you're going to measure your success, think about things that you could see, touch, feel, measure, physically interact with, something that you can actually measure and mark your milestones to success. Here are some useful tips while you're creating these measuring tools. Make sure that they're realistic. Anything is possible, but what do you believe? You in your heart of hearts, what do you believe is realistic? because this belief is what determines what's realistic. It's not based on if the world says it's realistic for you, it's based on what you think is realistic for you. What is realistic based on what you're willing to clear room for? A great example. It's not realistic for me to make millions of dollars with a real estate company if I'm unwilling to let go of the job I already have, or I'm unwilling to dedicate the time to learning about real estate or whatever it is. So you have to look at those things you were talking about letting go of or adding more of in part 3 and apply that here. And when you're measuring based on comparison, you're leaving a ton of factors unaccounted for, and you're creating something that's unrealistic for you. My example with the 2000s diet culture, what can my body actually do based on me? And who determines my success? Me. What am I willing to do or let go of for that to happen? And that is an important distinction here, because if I was going to create a goal, I could say, my goal is to be like this celebrity. Well, how would I measure success for that, or what would I let go of? Okay, if I wanted to achieve that goal, I would have to let go of eating altogether. And that's totally out of alignment with everything that we've talked about in the previous trainings, but it's out of alignment with me. So you can see how it impacts, how everything kind of works together and impacts each other. If your goal's out of alignment, well, your measurement for success is also going to be out of alignment. And it's all just not going to feel, whenever you're doing this and you're really truly doing it for you and have that authenticity behind it, the feeling that you get from it is a feeling of freedom, of balance, of calm. There's not a whole lot of, there can be some frustration, but it's not really this icky feeling. It's kind of hard to explain, but like I said, when it's based on you, you're just going to be more confident in it. You're going to feel better about it. It's going to work much better for you. And then we've already talked about changing from subjective to objective. So you want it to be concrete and objective. I'm so sorry, I cannot talk today. Concrete and objective. So let's say you're saying that you're measuring your success by your happiness. Okay, well, I know that I have succeeded when I'm happier. Well, how will you know? How will you know you're happier? What is it that makes you happier? What can you see, feel, touch, do? How will you know? Ask yourself these questions until you deeply, deeply understand what that looks like, and you can clearly picture either yes, I achieved it, or no, I did not. However you choose to measure your success should be specific and fully aligned with your vision and who you are. So that brings us to question number 5. What is the measuring tool for your dream? How will you know that you've made it? Use everything that we talked about throughout this video and really get specific, concrete, and clear on what it is that you want and how you will measure it, what it looks like. And I will see you back for part 5. Have a wonderful day, guys.